Hello, my friends. Welcome to Authentic Living with Linda. Today we're looking at how to deal with triggering situations. In line with yesterday's post about connection, I want to mention how we deal with those ornery people. You know, the ones who love to be grumpy. They're the people that are the bane of our life. I want to give us some suggestions on how we can deal with them on a day-to-day basis and how we can deal with ourselves in that situation. Each of us has a choice on how we treat ourselves and how we treat other people. And the saying that hurt people is never more so true. People can only hurt us when we have got hurt within us that is being triggered by their behaviors or their words. And sometimes hurt people like to be hurt. You know, it's like that's their happy place. Some people are spiteful just for the sake of being spiteful, because when they're being that way, they feel happy. I know, it's all back to front. To me, that just seems like make a better choice. But some people, that is their happy place. And as we get to live in our happy place, they get to live in their happy place. And it doesn't have to mean that they're right or that we're right. It is what it is. They like to be their way and we like to be however we like to show up. And no one can make you feel anything unless you let them. Ever. That is so freeing when you finally get that from your head down to your spirit and into your being, that no one can make you ever feel anything unless you give them permission to. It's so freeing. And that brings us to the triggering point. When you start feeling those triggers within you, that's when you need your red velvet rope policy. Remember, the red velvet rope policy is about us. It's about you setting boundaries for yourself. It's got nothing to do with anybody else and the way that they're behaving. It's got everything to do with the way that you want to respect yourself. So when you have a work colleague that is constantly triggering you, the first thing you do is to work out what the trigger is, and then to work out what within you is responding to that. And then you set your red velvet rope policy around yourself first, so that you work out what needs to be dealt with within that trigger. And as you work on yourself, then you have the space to be able to work with other people. Triggers are the behaviors of ourselves and others that create an emotional response within us. And often the response follows the trigger so closely that you would think that they're one and the same. So somebody triggers us, and just like that we respond. We don't even have a chance to think about anything. It's automatic, instant response. Most triggers are indicators that there is something within the triggered person that is wanting to be healed. If there wasn't anything within the person being triggered, there wouldn't be a trigger. So you may feel sorry when you hear somebody's sad story, but you're not triggered because you're not having an emotional response, the same as what you would be if you were actually in that situation. For example, when I'm feeling judged, the judgment within me is awake, and it is either beating up on myself or I'm beating up on somebody else. And this becomes my clue to look at what I'm thinking, to ask myself what hurt is being activated by someone else's or my actions. And remember, it all begins with a thought. So the actions trigger a thought. Then the thought triggers an emotion, and the emotion triggers a response. And that can happen really quickly. So the quicker the thought, emotion and action response happen, the less time you have for thinking and the more subconscious you are moving. The more into your subconscious you are moving. The best part about triggers is that we have the ability to retrain our brain on how we want it to respond. So there are 5 steps that I use to retrain my brain to give me space to work with the triggers that are in my life. The first step is to be aware that we are triggered. Can't fix it if you don't know that it's there. So being aware that you're being triggered is the very first step. The second step is to pause. Take a 5-second breathing pause, just to let yourself know that you're breaking the cycle. In that pause, you have time to not act. And the third step is to activate your brain. So do a quick mental scenario projection. So this is to project, if I behave in this way, what's going to happen? If I behave in this way, what's going to happen? Give yourself a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds to work out how you want to respond. And the fourth step is to decide on the action that you could take that would make the best use of your choices, so that you get to decide which way you act to the trigger that will get you closer to where you want to be. And the fifth and final step is to take the action that gives you the results that you want, or the closest to the results that you want. Simple? Yes. Easy? Never. Not so much. Because in the heat of a situation, that emotion and that action just wants to be. They just want to happen. And so actually giving yourself space to work out what it is you want helps. Also, visualization helps. Going into your mind and seeing yourself in situations that you are triggered with and working out how you want to behave gives you pre-warning of ways that you can actually handle a situation. So today's pearl of wisdom is: triggers are indicators of hurts waiting to be healed. Triggers are indicators of hurts waiting to be healed. And I'll see you tomorrow.